Hello, I'm Mark Price. I'd like to talk to you today about change. One day, Jesus and Satan were together and they decided to have a computer competition, see which one was better at computers. And so they were going for days and days and days, and all of a sudden there's a huge power outage. And by the time the computer's rebooted, the devil's all angry. He's saying, this is horrible. I lost everything. I can't find anything. Jesus just hits a button on his computer and prints out all of his work. And the devil says, you cheated. How did you do that? And Jesus smiled and looked at him and said, Jesus saves. The gospel today is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 6, and then 12 through 14. Jesus said to his disciples, do not give what is holy to dogs or throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn and tear you to pieces. Do to others whatever you would have them do to you. This is the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road broad that leads to destruction, and those who enter through it are many. How narrow the gate and constricted the road that leads to life, and those who find it are few. The gospel of the Lord. So today I want to focus on the last part about the narrow gate. And one thing that came to mind in the world we're living in today, this sort of moving past the pandemic and trying to get lives somewhat back to some kind of normalcy, we're going to notice that things are different. When we can go to restaurants, it's going to be different. It's going to be changed. The tables will be more widely spread. There may be a lot more outdoor seating. When schools start up again, things will be handled differently. People will probably be desks spread apart a lot more than they were. There's just going to be a lot of changes that are going to take place as the world continues to reopen after the pandemic. We're going to have to start wearing face covers in public, sometimes maybe not, depending on what the restrictions are in that area. But the point I'm making is we have to be open to change as a result of the pandemic. And every day when we go out, we have to think, okay, what's changed? What do I have to do differently? And faith is a lot like that in the sense that every day there's a change. The world is always throwing new things at us, and we have to be open to change. And every day, as we start our day, we should focus ourselves and say to ourselves, what's changed? What do I have to do differently today? What do I have to do to protect myself from what the world is going to keep throwing at me so that I can stay on that narrow path? The gospel is saying that the path to life eternal is a narrow one, and only few people actually end up following it, because the road going the other direction leads to destruction, that one that the world tries to pull you down, the road that has all the bright lights and the bright signs and say, my way, come this way. That's very appealing. But the road to strong faith, the road to a relationship with God through Christ, that's a narrow road. And it's difficult to stay on, and we have to be open to ongoing change in our life. Every single person that Jesus connected with in his life on this earth, their life changed. Sometimes small ways, change of mind, change of heart, change of attitude. Sometimes big ways, bringing people back from the dead. He made the lame to walk, the blind to see. But change always occurred. And we're called to ongoing change as people of faith. And we have to be open, just as we have to be open when we enter the world in this post-pandemic time. We have to be open to the ongoing change that is in front of us as people of faith, and always be open to that change. Remember the rich man that came to Jesus and said, how do I gain heaven? And Jesus said, we have to do this. He said, I do that. Well, then you have to do that. I do that. Then you do that. Follow the commandments. I follow the commandments, he said. And then Jesus says to him this. He says, sell all that you have and come and follow me. And what does this rich young man say? I'm not willing to change that much. Or when Jesus and Peter are talking and Jesus tells Peter to go out and fish, and Peter argues with Jesus, says, you don't fish now, it's the wrong time of day. And Jesus says to Peter, change. Change your mind, change your attitude, change your thoughts. And then Jesus says, I want you to go to the center of the lake. And Peter says, you don't catch fish at the center of the lake. And Jesus says, change. Do it my way, not your way, not the world's way. And then Jesus says, I want you to take your nets and throw them off the other side. Not the side you normally throw your nets, but the other side of the boat. And what does Peter say? No, we got to do it this way. And Jesus said, change. My way, Jesus says. Do it my way. Change your attitude. Change the direction of your life. Every day, look down that narrow path and try to fight off the lure of that wide path that, as the gospel said, leads us to destruction. I was on a plane some time ago going from San Diego to the East Coast, and a man was sitting next to me, and we got talking, and as you will on an airplane, or used to. I don't know what change is going to be. They might have plexiglass between customers. But we were sitting there talking, and he asked what I do, and I said, well, I speak in a lot of churches. And he says, oh, really? What kind of churches do you speak? And I said, well, I'm Catholic. And he said, so am I. I said, oh, that's good. He said to me, I go to church every Sunday. And I said, well, good, you must have had good parents. And so we're talking, and he asked me about the kinds of things I talk about, and I tell him. And then the plane lands in Texas, Houston, and he's getting off, but I'm going forward on to the East Coast someplace. And we exchanged business cards. And he left, and I went on, never expecting to hear from him ever again. But you know, I got a correspondence from him a few weeks later. And it said, Dear Reverend Price. I've been called worse. And it says, Dear Reverend Price. And he said, I'm writing to you because I lied to you. Oh, whoa, think about that. How many of us would send a letter to somebody or reach out to somebody that we don't know? We probably never see them again, but just to basically say, I'm sorry I lied to you. So this was an intriguing letter, so I kept reading it. And he said to me in the note, he said, on the plane I told you that I was going to Houston for a business meeting. He said, that's what I told my wife and kids when they dropped me at the airport. But I was actually going to Houston to have an affair. But as I'm walking off that plane after talking to you, I'm starting to think, wait a minute, I told that guy on the plane that I'm a Catholic, I'm a believer, I'm a person of faith. And then I thought to myself, is this the kind of thing that a person of faith should be doing? And then by the time I got off the plane and got into the terminal, I decided I was going to go back home. And I went up to the woman who I was going to meet, and I told her the truth that I'm married and I can't go through with this. And I turned around and I went home, he said. Now here's my question to you. When did this guy truly believe? When was he on the narrow path? Was it when he was in Mass every single Sunday, sitting in those pews, standing when he's supposed to stand, sitting when he's supposed to sit, kneeling when he's supposed to kneel? Is that when he truly believed? Is that when he was on the narrow path? Was he on the narrow path and believing when he was in church saying, I believe in God, the Father, the Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son? Is that when he believed? Is that when he was on the narrow path? Or did he get on that narrow path when he changed, when he became a different person, when he took that very narrow road that people of faith are called to take, when he decided to not go through with what the world says is okay and turn around and go home? When was he on that narrow path? So the reading today calls us to realize that the path to everlasting life is narrow and that we have to focus on it. And as people of faith, every day we have to be open to change. Change those things in our life that take us away from that narrow path. Change those things in our life that keep drawing us to that wide path to destruction. And focus on the teachings of God through his Son Jesus. This is what we're called to do as people of faith. Amen? This is Mark Price. Thanks for listening.